Ever picture yourself leading a team outside? Not just, building something, but making sure something essential keeps flowing.
Okay.
Not a water park, though. Haha.
Right.
We're talking electricity.
Yeah.
Today's deep dive is all about the Power Lines Supervisor, and we're using RoleCatcher.com to, really break it down.
Yeah, we're going way past those, vague job postings you always see to really get into what this job is actually like. Day to day, what you need to know to be good at it, the works.
So no more must-love climbing and spreadsheets.
Uh-huh.
Let's get into it. RoleCatcher's Guide makes it seem like this role is, hands-on, but also, high level.
Totally. You're not just connecting wires.
Yeah.
You're responsible for whole power grids. Imagine a huge storm takes out the power and thousands of people are in the dark. A power line supervisor is the one who has to figure out what happened, get people organized to fix it, and get the lights back on.
Wow.
Talk about an important job.
For sure. And that's just one thing. RoleCatcher has this what they do section that talks about everything from, being in charge of construction projects to managing budgets to making sure everyone is following all the safety rules. It's a wild mix of knowing your stuff and being a good leader.
And it's just going to get more and more interesting.
Okay.
Think about how we're switching to renewable energy, like solar and wind. Now, a power line supervisor might be working with solar panel installers one day, and then fixing a transformer problem the next.
Wow, you've got to be able to switch gears quickly. So adaptable is definitely going on the list of must-have skills, but RoleCatcher also mentions something about smart grids. What are those, and how do those play into all of this?
Okay, so picture this. A power grid that can actually think and react to changes as they happen.
Whoa.
Yeah, that's a smart grid. They use sensors and automation to make sure the energy is going where it's supposed to go, stop blackouts before they happen, and they can even seamlessly work with things like solar and wind power.
So instead of just reacting to emergencies, they're using technology to stay a step ahead.
Totally.
That's amazing.
And if you want to be a supervisor, it means you've got to be comfortable with tech, with looking at data, and with the fact that things in the power industry are changing all the time.
I'm already seeing how challenging but rewarding this job can be. But before we get into the nitty-gritty of how to climb the career ladder and what specific skills you need, what does RoleCatcher say about the future for this role?
Right.
Is it a safe bet career-wise? Or are robots going to be taking over these jobs too?
Well, those robots had better be ready to learn from the pros. RoleCatcher actually says that the future is looking bright for power line supervisors.
Oh, it's good.
Yeah, they say there are going to be tons of jobs because, a lot of the infrastructure is getting old and needs to be replaced. Plus, there's all the new renewable energy stuff. And on top of that, the power grids are getting more and more complex.
So it's a good career to be in, then, it sounds like. What about the money? Does RoleCatcher say anything about that?
They do. They say that the average power line supervisor in the U.S. makes around $85,000 per year.
Okay. Not bad at all.
But get this.
Yeah.
That's just the average. Experience plays a huge role. So if you've been doing it for a while, like 10 plus years,
Right.
you could easily be making over $120,000.
Wow. Now that is serious money. Okay, but we have to be real, right? Usually when you see those kinds of high salaries, it means the job isn't exactly a walk in the park.
Right.
Does RoleCatcher talk about the downsides at all?
Yeah, for sure. Remember we were talking about those storm outages?
Yeah.
Those often mean crazy long hours, working outside in terrible weather, and, everyone is breathing down your neck to get the power back on.
Oh, yeah. Stressful.
RoleCatcher even told this story about a supervisor who had to work for 18 hours straight after a hurricane to get everything back up and running.
Intense. So it's not always easy. Sounds like you really need to be able to handle the pressure in this job.
Absolutely. You've got to be the kind of person who thrives under pressure, who doesn't mind some overtime, and who can make tough calls when they need to be made.
You've got to think on your feet.
Exactly. A RoleCatcher actually breaks down the most common personality traits they see in successful power line supervisors.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Things like, being good at solving problems.
Yeah.
Natural leadership qualities, strong work ethic.
So we've got the skills, the right kind of personality, and, hopefully you can handle your coffee. Now let's talk career path. So where does someone even start if they want to do this? So where do you even begin?
Well, RoleCatcher says it all starts with getting your hands dirty as a power lines technician.
Okay, from the ground up.
Yeah. That's where you learn how everything actually works,
Yeah.
You're helping out the experienced technicians, figuring out the tools, getting a real feel for how the power lines work.
So it's kind of like, a paid apprenticeship almost.
Exactly. And RoleCatcher really stretches how important it is to have that hands-on experience. Like, it's one thing to read about electrical theory in a book, but it's a whole other thing to be out there actually splicing cables, figuring out problems in the real
Well,
world.
right. So you've put in your time, you've learned the ropes. Literally, what's the next step up from there?
RoleCatcher talks about the journeyman power lines technician.
Okay.
So that's where you go from just helping out to actually leading.
Ah, I
You're
see.
doing inspections, making repairs, even showing the newer technicians how it's done.
So that's where the leadership stuff starts to come in. You're not just responsible for yourself anymore.
Exactly. And RoleCatcher has some really good examples of what that actually looks like.
Mhm.
Like, say you're on a job and there's this really tricky wiring problem.
Oh, okay.
A journeyman technician, they're not just supposed to figure out what the problem is, but they've also got to be able to explain the solution to their team, like clearly and simply.
Right, right. So you've got the skills, you've got the leadership experience, you're ready to move up. What does it take to actually become a Power Lines supervisor?
Well, it usually takes a mix of things.
Yeah.
You need the experience, for sure, and you'll probably need certain certifications too. Plus, you've got to prove that you can actually lead a team.
Mm-hmm.
Remember we were talking about those strategies for advancement?
Yeah, yeah.
That's where those come in.
So, like, what are some things someone could do to stand out, to show they're ready to be a supervisor?
Well, RoleCatcher mentions a few specific certifications that can give you an edge. Like,
Hmm.
there's the Certified Utility Safety Professional, or CUSP,
Yeah.
designation.
Okay.
Having that shows whoever's hiring that you take safety seriously,
Yeah.
which is huge in this line of work.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
Can't mess around with safety. But it's more than just checking boxes on a resume, right? Like,
Yeah.
what are some of those qualities you can't really teach, but that make a good supervisor?
Oh, for sure. For sure. I mean, think about it. A Power Line Supervisor, they're not only responsible for getting the job done on time and within budget, they're also responsible for their whole team's safety.
Huge responsibility.
Yeah, so you got to be a good communicator, you got to know how to motivate people, you got to be able to think on your feet when things get tough.
So you're like the captain of the ship, making sure everything runs smoothly no matter what.
That's a great way to put it. And just like a good captain, a Power Line Supervisor has to be willing to keep learning.
All right, keep up with the times.
Exactly, because the power sector is always changing. New technologies popping up, new safety regulations, all that.
So even when you get to the top, there's still more to learn.
For sure. In fact, RoleCatcher's career map shows that even once you're a supervisor, there are loads of ways to keep moving up.
Yeah.
You could get really specialized in something, like renewable energy or those new smart grids.
Cool.
Or you could go into project management, overseeing those big power projects. You could even get into training or consulting, sharing what you know with the next generation.
Wow, so there's a lot of different paths you could take.
Absolutely. So yeah, if you've got the skills, the experience, and you're ambitious, there are tons of possibilities in this field.
This deep dive has been honestly super interesting. We've covered so much, from the basics of power line work all the way up to what a supervisor actually does and how to even become one.
Yeah.
We've even touched on how AI is changing the game when you're looking for a job these days and how RoleCatcher can help you, stand out from the crowd.
Absolutely. And, I hope our listeners feel like they can take that next step, whatever it is. Maybe they'll check out some job openings on rolecatcher.com or
Yeah.
brush up on their skills or even just learn some more about this field. It's a good one.
It is. And that is it for today's deep dive. See you next time.